Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rochford Files with your host, Andrew Rochford. And it's nice come to you live from the Mile Highland City. And we've got the latest Democratic uproar of hysteria as among many things, some Eric Adams one-upping AOC's dress from last year at the Met Gala. Gonna keep an eye out for updates with Nia Turner and her House election rematch against Chantel Brown. Then we gotta go in on some press freedom hypocrisy on World Press Freedom Day. Always important to point out the hypocrisy of the most powerful empire in the world, the United States. And we've got an update on the Brittney Griner situation as she's still being detained in Russia. So that's what's going on for tonight's show. And if you stick around with me to the end, I'll drop some new guest announcements. As that's going to be, I finally stepped up and started to put in work on getting some damn guests lined up for the show. But for now, let's dive into the leading story of tonight's show, and it's the Roe versus Wade stuff. So just going to go through the trending hashtag on Twitter, point out some the tone deaf messaging of liberals and how they react following the leak last night that the Supreme Court may finally overdo Roe versus Wade. Let's get that up on the screen for y'all. There was just way too many things to try to select from this. So I'm just going to go through and point out some of the more notable shitlib hypocrisy. Hey, look who's at the top right now. Susan Sarandon. You know, the top person that liberals love to blame for Hillary Clinton not being able to win the election, in addition to Bernie Sanders. Here's what she said 8 hours ago. Dems have the House, Dems have the Senate, Dems have the White House. They can abolish the filibuster and codify Roe versus Wade right now. Maybe some of you vote-shaming keyboard activists should get outside and use your energy to hold them accountable. That right there is what many of us on the left have been asking all along. Instead of punching down on your fellow people, liberals need to learn how to punch up for once in their life and actually hold the people that are closer to them ideologically accountable. Because if you want shit to change, you're not going to try to go after the person who's most resistant to change. And that's one of the things that I said last year during Force the Vote, how illogical it is to say, because that was one of their favorite, the anti-Force the Vote crowd, that was one of their favorite arguments to make is the fact that they're not the problem, it's your corporate Democrats, or even worse, it's focus on Republicans instead. No. What we've seen is that type of logic doesn't fly. It's always best to challenge those who are closest to your beliefs and push them to fight for you, because it's not going to happen any other way, even though direct action, like what we've seen at the U.S. Capitol today. Shout out to Reef Breland and Colin Radix Carter for going down there and uh, providing coverage to that event. And Finney killed it in her speech there as well. And I know that we're a little more than a half hour into the state capitol action in downtown Denver. So if anything pops up from the best of my ability to keep an eye on it, then I'm going to make sure that if there's something good to amplify, I will for the time that I'm on the air. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. The Yvette Nicole Brown. Everyone's favorite shitlib actor, one of the most strongest anti Nia Turner, Brianna Joy Gray voices we have. If you are upset that Roe v. Wade is about to be overturned by the Supreme Court, but you didn't vote in 2016 or you voted for Trump because you didn't like the smart lady, you did this with your apathy or your decision to choose an imp for president. You gave him 3 Supreme Court seats. This is the type of goalpost moving that is been problematic, because what we do know is Barack Obama would not stand for his Supreme Court pick of Merrick Garland. He cucked out and allowed Mitch McConnell to prevent Obama from trying to make any attempt to force it through. And the fact that when Amy Coney Barrett got confirmed into the lame duck phase of the last couple of months of Trump's presidency, Democrats rolled over when they could have easily used the same type of stalling tactics that Republicans did to make sure that Merrick Garland didn't get on. And if you stalled long enough, Ketanji Brown Jackson could have been on the Supreme Court at least a year sooner than what she actually did. And the fact that she is among the blue check Hollywood liberal vote shaming queens just because the facts do not line up. Hillary Clinton got nearly 3 million more votes. Whoever voted for Jill Stein, if I remember correctly, 85 to 90% of Stein voters would have not voted for Hillary Clinton. So that means that 10% or so that could have made Hillary Clinton their next choice would not have made a difference in that election. Then another thing to point out is Gary Johnson got like 4.5% of the vote, and you still couldn't figure out a way to win that election when the Libertarian candidate siphons 4.5% of potential votes from Donald Trump. And what's weird is, even though the Libertarian Party ran a much weaker candidate, Joe Jurgensen, in 2020, they actually, the votes in the critical states were actually pretty pivotal towards helping them get places like Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Good George Carlin material here. I'm not going to play it out loud, but even though George Carlin has been gone for a while, time and time again, it shows that what he said in his routines only becomes more and more true over time. Unholy Rome got his stream on in the TV right in front of me right now. Y'all was just giving praise to the Supreme Court for picking a black woman, and then they turned around and killed Roe versus Wade without a backup, which will hurt and kill black women. Yes, ain't that the truth? That's always been the goal all along for the duopoly. Design a system where only the rich and privileged can be unhindered by any of the toxic bullshit that they try to do, whether it's holding back wages for years and years, taking away women's right to choose. In addition to that, trying to force people to uh, jab or they lose their jobs, continuously uh, block rent control, which in fact just puts you in a situation where you need to have either more people live with you or move somewhere cheaper, further and further away from where you used to live. Therefore, it's a never ending cycle because then the gas has increased and it's such a shitty self fulfilling prophecy. And this is what Melinda Hales, who's she? Singer, actress, activist, host, writer. Well, she says, if you think they won't come for same sex marriage and interracial marriage next, you aren't paying attention. And this is the only thing that, in that Obama passing uh, gay marriage in his second term was one of the only positive things he could cling on, in addition to that Joe Biden. I remember that story. Supposedly he got moved on the issue of gay marriage, and that was one of the things that these push Biden left people used as a justification in hopes of pushing Biden left on other issues, when smart people who saw the man for what he was knew that there was no chance of pushing that man left. And also the case of fighting neoliberalism as opposed to neo-fascism, when uh, Joe Biden is essentially the same brand of fascist as Donald Trump, except more dangerous because he causes a bunch of liberals to fall asleep. That's what he, and that's what this election, this term of Biden has really, the problem that it has really caused. See if there's any. Oh, yeah, Peter Dow. We're about to get into many of the hypocritical moments of Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, 2017. Abortion is kind of fading as an issue for Democrats. It really is. And that's why you can't believe her when she feigns these emotional tears of being upset that Roe versus Wade is now in danger of being overturned for real. And now they're going to gaslight you into trying to vote for them to protect Roe versus Wade when history shows they're not going to do that. They had the Democratic supermajority that Barack Obama started under, and they sat on their hands and couldn't get jack shit done. They did the same thing that they did now. Instead of focusing their blame on the rotating villains of Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin, the rotating villain back then was Joe Lieberman. In addition to that, Joe Biden said back in the 70s that women should not get the full choice of what they can do with their body. And that's very on brand for a man that is this devout Catholic, never someone I could mistake as even being liberal, even though there's very little difference between liberals and conservatives as far as I'm concerned. Because one doesn't pretend to be something they're not. Liberals, on the other hand, are always taking performative stances, then stabbing you in the back when it's time to take real action. And when you see some of these gatherings around the country, uh, there are definitely plenty of challenges in terms of trying to get mass or mobilization off the ground. But it's the fact that the mass mobilization only happens when you can clearly tell it's a cause that gets easily co-opted the most by uh, the liberals. And women's march type stuff is one of those examples. And it's why when it comes time for us to get a movement going on other issues like Medicare for all, we could only get like about 100 to 200 people in many of the major cities across this country. And certain places struggled even worse than that. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, Margaret Kimberly, a good journalist to follow. I point out that Democrats could have protected abortion rights with legislation. The pro-choice stance is a scam to keep you voting for them. You're welcome. And that's the problem with the way their setup is. Because if you had codification in place and you're telling people, and people have to rally around the issue of making sure it doesn't get weakened, it's much easier to get people on board with it and win the fullest of the full type of status is in place, not trying to get people to get on board with rallying around half measures. And this is what Democrats have sat on their hands for 14 years, is they've sat on this half measure because this election system is a grift. And this is the next big fundraising opportunity for them. And this is why it leaked, because they're opportunists in the fact that they want to use these type of issues to fearmonger you into voting for them. And this new generation, it looks like they're not falling for that. The generation after me, the Zoomers, they're not going to vote for you for nothing. And and some of those people did give Biden a chance, probably with the first election that they got to vote for in their lifetimes. And you think that they're going to continue to circle the drain with y'all shit libs? I mean, I I figured it out by the third time around, and I still regret that I didn't figure it out after the first time. I mean, my first election I got to vote for was Obama, so I was Obama voter twice, and I'm one of the Hillary Clinton voters in 2016 who really regrets that one. So that Hillary vote, then the second Obama vote are the ones that are definitely top two in the regret. And now I'm just going to be a bottom up type approach to future elections, but I'm not going to put the type of emotional investment that you see a lot of these other lefty people do. And once we shift gears into the next segment with Nia Turner, I'll go get into that more. From this tweet from Alex, living in California, I could easily do a vote blue no matter who liberals did. I could turn around and pretend I don't see your struggles or shock at Roe versus Wade decision because it doesn't affect me. But then again, we are not the same. I do care. I want equality for all. And that's the thing. These establishment type, the strings that they play with, they do not want a movement based in true solidarity around the struggles that every single person could have. They want the marginalized communities to be in oppression measuring contest. That way, they can only focus on their issues and not anyone else's. But as the type of things I'm about is trying to get everyone on board around the collective struggle. And if the manipulation that happens here. There's a reason why they try to get the average person to care about certain things they do at the time. Because they want you distracted when they do something far more nefarious that flies under the radar. they did come out to DC last night as well. And that's how it looked as Chuck Modi. He is regularly on the ground taking footage at these events. So he does some good on the ground reporting. One of the only flaws I noticed in Chuck is he has a blind spot for Corey Bush, but that's really the only flaw with him personally. I think I'll just jump to my profile for the other ones that I pointed out. Yes, I'll just key in on this one real quick from the National. Kyle Griffin, elections matter. Oh, good to see you. We're carrying signs now. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good here. Good to see you. Drop a message in, and thanks for listening. As I mentioned before, if this really mattered, you would see Democrats be united on things that actually help people. Instead, if they show any form of unity, it's for issues where it helps the donors. That's the unity that I see the Democrats, Republicans alike have. They're not unified in doing things to help the average person. And as I just recently pointed out, that if the elections mattered, all the Democrats would be in favor of codifying Roe versus Wade, even if they didn't have enough votes. But the reason why, another thing to point out about this being such a grift is a thing that not enough people hone in on this point. It's the fact that this election system is designed to prevent the supermajority. It is not designed for a supermajority to happen very often. It's the exception to the rule. Ideally, the perfect system for them is one where both parties go back and forth between their slim majorities. That way, they get very little done. Hardly any shit changes. That's why I do not, people do not fall for the whole blow up of importance of federal level elections. Because even in spite of all the fear mongering you hear from the red and blue teamers, elections never really turn out to be to those extremes. Even though the Obama era had a pretty wild swing, but that was really self-inflicted, and it's not the voters to blame. This is all on the politicians that fail to keep their promises and take actions which are counterproductive to ever living up to those promises. So let me take a look at, let's see if there's any updates on this Nia Turner election yet. If there is, I'm going to go in on that. next. But if there's not, I'm going to push that back a segment. Taking a look right now. Not look. I'm going to hold back on that segment. And let's do this. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the Eric Adams Met Gala look next. By the way, did you see that blazer that Eric Adams wore last night at the Met Gala? Yeah, let's take a look at that. Look at that. And I honestly thought that AOC's Tax the Rich dress from last year could not be one up. But this one by Eric Adams is an example of a one-upsmanship by a fellow New Yorker. And look at the irony of that message. This guy is the cop, controls the cops. No, actually, he doesn't control the cops, but his job, if he were serious about ending gun violence, he could have a lot of control over the cops. But actually, the reason why he's the mayor of New York is because the cops got him in control. This is why you see in New York the $5 billion and rising police budget. And it feels like 20% of the city is a cop in New York. That's how many cops they need to harass people when they don't pay for the subway. And we know that Eric Adams is the type of person who's going to tell you up and down, left and right, that you have to have cops to end gun violence. And he would not, and there'd be no way that he would let the logic of social safety nets actually being far more useful to helping prevent, make neighborhoods more safe and help people have their basic needs met. Because that is one of the main reasons people get motivated to commit crime. It's not because of the fact that they're inherently violent people. It's because in this capitalist hellscape, there's people who don't really have other choices. And the fact that it doesn't help that all that the police system is designed to target poor neighborhoods and make them over policed, then the racket that they have created by the charges for the petty crimes. And it's scary because Eric Adams is the future of that party. It's not Pete Buttigieg. It's not Kamala Harris. It's not AOC or Pramila Jayapal or Ro Khanna. It's a guy like Eric Adams. They're going to use his identity as weaponization to create an even worse status quo when they have the chance to elevate him up the ranks in the Democratic Party. So watch out if Joe Biden doesn't get that second term. I bet this is the guy that they're going to elevate in 2028. And that's another reason why progressives need to give up on this idea of the hope of one of them ever breaking through to become president. They've always got someone else in mind. And even if an AOC compromises herself to double the rate that she has over this past year and a half, it's still not going to make enough of a difference for her. So the irony of a cop in mayor with this blazer on. And I thought that only progressives wore empty messaging slogans on their clothes. The liberal politicians do it too. Let's reload. Okay, I'm pulling up those Nia Turner results right now. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to make an account for that. As I show you the results, I will also make sure that to get into what I had thought beforehand in this election. Yeah, I'm just going to do a regular search engine to get the current up-to-date results. And thanks once again for coming out and on the show Tuesday night. And I've now got some results up on the screen. Oh boy, it's really bad. In fact, let me see if I can zoom in that a bit. There, that's better. And I just saw tweets a couple of minutes ago calling this election for Chantel Brown. How does it feel, Jordan Sheraton? You did this false painting of an optimal optimist pitcher, giving people false hope that Nia Turner would have a better chance than she did last time. For the record, my personal feeling was I honestly thought Nia Turner was going to lose a bit worse than she did the last time because she was about 4,000 votes off. And I thought she's going to lose out by at least a couple thousand votes more. Or that's like another percentage point or two. That was my real prediction. I thought my second likely outcome was I think she lost by 4% last time. So that meant, okay, if she loses again, she would just increase that by losing by 3%. And even though it's dismal when the election already gets called after only 26% report, this is a slaughter, a near 40% blowout. Difference is this time, the left isn't. There's going to be shit libs trying to flex on the left when most of the left is kind of, I wouldn't say most, but some of the left is kind of emotionally removed from these type of things. And it's because we know that the effort and investment, including the money of people which could be better used towards helping them, is a waste of effort and time. And this type of result just proves it. And just to show you how bad the state of affairs are on the left is even if Nia Turner had been this stood true to that fighting candidate that was part of the Bernie Sanders campaign, this could have still been a 20 point victory, even if all the left was in for this race. And that there's more meaningful things to organize on that aren't dependent on whether so and so politicians can win. And even though Nina would be the marginally better candidate in the short term, she was the system was eventually going to eat her up and turn her into her opponent over time anyway, whether that happened within a few weeks, a few months. It was only a matter of time. And this right there is an example of it. And there's just not much to, and I know that liberals are flexing, but it's not quite the same when you don't have the power over as many people as you used to, because let's just get down to it. Nia Turner has ran flawed campaigns both times. She's tried to do things that would help her capitulate to the establishment both times for declining results each time. She had Jeff Weaver on her campaign in that special election last year, then even had Bakari Sellers on her campaign, a lot in the way that Bernie Sanders tried to bring in a couple moles. And we got a new update. Just happened live on the screen. It's a slight jump for Nia Turner, but this is all going to be pretty meaningless at the end of the day. But let's be honest. Nia Turner did not help herself whatsoever in giving herself the best chance possible to being able to compete in the election. And this is such a rigged system that even if she did all the things right, that many of us on the left criticize her for the left on, it still may have not made a difference in the scoreboard. And we still are going to have people on the left who are going to try to find things within the electoral system to blame, like all the dark money that came out to help Chantel Brown. Or they're going to blame the lefties who have been critical of this because they're part of that professional managerial class. They're not going to change. Yeah, it's become part of their grift to extend as a propaganda arm for progressive Democratic candidates. They're not the ones who are going to be honest with you and oh, yes, Leah Neely. Nia Turner didn't sound much different than her opponent, except she said Medicare for all a few times. Then that even lost meaning for Nia Turner because when she announced that she was going to take the rematch with Chantel Brown, the next day Chantel Brown becomes a co-sponsor of Medicare for All. So that was a small thing that took the sail out of her boat, in addition to those her progressive teammates on the inside who left her out for high and dry by endorsing Chantel Brown, allowing her to become a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, among those things. And the fact that no one had the courage to make a real endorsement for her until 6:30 last night. That's when AOC put her endorsement out. When if you want these endorsements to be effective, you got to be doing this at least 2 weeks to a month out. And you don't want all the endorsements to pour in at once. You would want a wave of endorsements. So you would like the endorsements to happen strategically and in a good sequence. That way, people can continuously hear that candidate get endorsed and then have politicians that they may be familiar with, for better or worse association, to help them put them over the top. Then the last straw had to be when Nia Turner threw the BDS movement under the bus. And that's the other thing that made her essentially the same as her opponent. Because to people in Palestine who are living under attack, it doesn't make a difference whether this politician hedges with them while the other one is with the people who are trying to do genocide on them. But for some reason, there's lefties who think doing these hedging tricks are somehow going to help you uh, make up margins like these, when the opposite is true at the end of the day. So today is World Press Freedom Day. So a couple things to show on the screen, including shitlib hypocrisy that happened yesterday, just before the actual World Press Freedom Day. There we are. And this comes from Greg O'Lear. And I guess this is what he does. Author, hashtag dirty rubles. Sounds like anti-Russian propaganda, if you ask me. Plus 2 other novels. Dispatches every Tuesday, Friday, Sunday at Prevail. Oh, he's a shitlib podcaster. Sorry to disappoint the Russian bots, making him trend, but Julian Assange is not a journalist. Journalists don't hole up in foreign embassies for 7 years to avoid criminal charges. You know who does? Criminals and assets of hostile foreign powers. Be right back. Give me a moment. Oh, sorry, felt a nostril get stuffed up for a moment. And this is another, and this was the pre World Press Freedom example of the derangement and anti Julian Assange propaganda that useful idiots like Greg O'Lear put out on the regular. Then you see here, he didn't want to get ratioed in the plies. See, so he only allowed his shitlib echo chamber the opportunity to reply. Guys like that, I don't think anyone made it through the replies. Anyone who knows that Julian Assange is a real as fuck journalist who exposed the war crimes of the US empire, and that they used to be more for Julian Assange when the crimes got exposed under George W. Bush, but when they exposed, when WikiLeaks exposed Hillary Clinton, they started to not like that anymore. When WikiLeaks has a impeccable record of accuracy in their journalism, and the state is just upset that Assange revealed their crimes, and he has been stuck in Belmarsh for several years now. So I'm going to get the world peace, press freedom search up on the screen from Twitter, and we'll give you a feel of what's being said on that day. Julian Assange has been in prison for 1,118 days. Happy World Press Freedom. He is the face of a journalist who doesn't have their press freedom. And this is Claire Daly, one of the best politicians in the world. She's rightfully called out the Russia and Ukraine issue for what it is. So I'm going to play this since I'm sure she probably said something really based on this.
Espionage case. Thank you, President. I think there is a terrible irony that as Europe focuses on the war in Ukraine, almost without notice, the journalist who more than anyone else exposed war crimes by the US military in Iraq and Afghanistan, Julian Assange, has had his extradition case dealt with quietly, without comment, without fanfare, paving the way for him to be extradited to the United States to face espionage case, which could see him in jail for 175 years, for having the audacity to expose war crimes. And the criminals walk free while his life is in danger. His crime shining the light. Now, the British Supreme Court has refused to hear an appeal against the magistrate's decision to extradite him. Now he can be extradited. The case is with Priti Patel. It could also be overturned by Biden. Tomorrow is World Press Freedom Day. If the Commission and every single one of the political groups here do not raise the call for the release of Julian Assange, it makes a mockery of that day.
That right there is the truth. And I think from my ancestry, I do have like the most or second most Irish. That does fluctuate on occasion if you've ever done one of those DNA tests to try to figure out your ancestry. But Irish is one of the things I'm most highest, and this Irish woman, Claire Daly, is got to be one of my favorite fellow Irish people in the world right now, as she is uh, frequently speaking truth in moments like these. And this is why press freedom is such a hypocritical stance that the United States takes. We got war criminals not only living, but exceeding their life expectancy while perfectly innocent people are living in decline because they refuse to help improve the lives of people and only enrich themselves, the defense contractors, the corporations, the banks. That's really all the United States works for. The few billionaires that hold well over 90% of the wealth of the country. And Comrade Misty, one of the most active voices in the United States for Julian Assange. And that he's not the only person that is having issues with their press freedom. There's also still Edward Snowden, even though he's more free than Assange is. Commander X, Chelsea Manning's been in trouble, Daniel Hale. So there's quite a few people who don't have the freedom in their journalism that most definitely absolutely should. And it's good to see that there's a ton of people who are flooding this top section of the World Press Freedom Day with pro Assange messages. There's a press freedom hypocrite in Antony Blinken. So let's move on to the very last story of tonight. And this one takes me to the WNBA. So I'm going to start off with what Chris Haynes shared earlier in the day. Or very early this morning. WNBA announces initials and jersey number of All-Star Brittney Griner will be featured on all 12 WNBA courts to acknowledge her importance. And let me go over this official press release. The WNBA plans to acknowledge the importance of Phoenix Mercury center Brittney Griner to the league during the 2022 season, which tips off on Friday, May 6th. Griner's initial and jersey number will feature along the sideline of all 12 WNBA courts. As we begin the 2022 season, we are keeping Brittney at the forefront of what we do through the game of basketball and in the community, said WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. We continue to work on bringing Brittney home and are appreciative of the support the community has shown BG and her family during this extraordinarily challenging time. The below image demonstrates the design of Griner's initials and jersey number that will be placed on each WNBA court. And for about 40 minutes or so, this is what looked to be another empty and performatively symbolic action that the WNBA was taking here. Because did we really believe the lip service of Kathy Engelbert when she said that they were trying to pressure politicians that could help bring Brittney Griner back to the United States? No, I don't think so. In fact, she's been stuck in Russia for over 2 months now. And a lot of that is much due to the fact that the Biden administration sat on their hands and would not take actions in negotiating a way to bring her back. So, after about 40 minutes or so after that story came up, that's when we got an actual type of substantive update from this. And this one came from TJ Quinn of ESPN. The U.S. government now considers WNBA star Brittney Griner to be wrongfully detained by the Russian government, signaling a significant shift in how officials will try to get her home. The welfare and safety of U.S. citizens abroad is among the highest priorities of the U.S. government, the State Department said. The Department of State has determined that the Russian Federation has wrongfully detained U.S. citizen Brittney Griner. The U.S. government will continue to undertake the efforts to provide appropriate support for Mrs. Griner. And that right there is something that easily could have been prevented. if you try to take action pretty much right away after it happened, then you prevent the Russian government from wrongfully detaining her and dragging this process out, ultimately hurting Griner in the process because she's not able to return home to her family. And this is on the United States government for not making this possible soon. This is not about the fact that she made a mistake of trying to get home with the marijuana paraphernalia as she tried to get on a plane back to the United States just after the Russia finally decided to stand up for the Donbass region, among the others that the Ukrainian coup government had been attacking in their region for many years. The officials and other sources of Griner's case declined to say what led the shift or whether there have been any discussions about what it would take to secure her release. Brittany has been detained for 75 days, and our expectation is that the White House do whatever is necessary to bring her home, Griner's agent Lindsay Kagawa Colas said in a statement to ESPN Tuesday. The change in designation means the U.S. government will no longer wait for Griner's case to play out through the Russian legal system and will seek to negotiate her return. So it means Griner's fellow WNBA players and supporters in Congress will be told they have the family's blessing to bring as much attention to her case as they wish. I don't think there's much else from that article that stands out to go over. But once again, a different government could have easily gotten this done within a few days. As I mentioned last week on the show with Cy Lawson of the Political Matrix, that the previous president in charge, Donald Trump, would have figured out a way to get Brittney Griner out within a few days because the former President Trump was an opportunist who was always about trying to uh, win over the black community with trying to take care of the black celebrities in moments like these. Especially, could you imagine if LeAngelo Ball was stuck in China for 3 months after shoplifting? Because that's what would have happened if if Biden or Hillary Clinton were president. If when LeAngelo Ball got caught shoplifting in China when he was with UCLA at the time, not just being taken care of in a matter of a few days. Someone like LeAngelo Ball wouldn't have been able to have any type of college basketball season had the choice of not having a college basketball season had a Democratic president just sat on their hands and let him be stuck in China. And another, and I think ASAP Rocky was the other one of the other high profile victories that Trump used to try to win over the black community in his time as president. But once again, that's what you get from a Democratic Party these days, which is, as sad as it sounds, they actually are. They don't only posture as being more right wing when they're in charge, they actually can be more right wing than Republicans when they are in charge, like you have been seeing for nearly the last year and a half since Joe Biden has taken over. He has essentially continued all the worst things Donald Trump had done. In fact, made some of the conditions of those things even worse, such as packing cages at an even greater level, reopening one of those detention centers that liberal outrage got the Trump administration to close down. So this is a sad negligence of power opportunity being thrown away by the Biden administration. And that is going to be the big theme of what Democratic presidencies are known for these days. They sit on their hands and pass on doing anything that helps them become better in any way, shape, or form. And they just dicked around and allowed Brittney Griner to just be stuck in Russia for like 2 months, maybe even 3 months more than she really had to be when it's all said and done. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of the Rochford Files with your host, Andrew Rochford. Now we've reached the point of the show where I'm going to start to announce some upcoming guests. On Thursday night, I got a cool Twitter mutual coming out, Nairi Holmes. So that's going to be a fun stream. Then the following week, next Tuesday, is the 1 year anniversary of the Rochford Files. So I'm going to work on trying to get some other people that I've had on the show over the past year join me. It won't just be one person that I'm trying to get on. I'm trying to get a few different people to join me. I want to have a nice party and bullshit type of stream. Then the following Thursday on May 12th, we'll be having Marcus Cage, the other half of the political matrix. He will be the next guest. Then we got to go 2 weeks from today. We're supposed to have Uncle Warren on. So those are a few of the upcoming guests on the Rochford Files. Because these things go better when you have more people around and a bigger contingent of people as a whole. And hopefully by the next couple of shows, I'll be able to announce more upcoming guests, especially for next Tuesday's year anniversary show, which is honestly pretty coincidental that it fell on a new normal day for this show to be on. So with that being said, thanks to y'all for coming out in support and checking out another episode of the show. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the stream on YouTube. Please, anyone that you could spread this out to, especially if it helps me take the next steps forward of my next subscriber goal on YouTube, which is to break the 100 subscriber mark. That would be very, very helpful. Don't forget, if you're on multiple platforms, please try to follow and subscribe on another one. And yes, click this link in the bio, please. That one right below. Yeah. Go if you can follow me on Twitch, Odyssey, Rumble. The more places to help you're subscribed and followed to your favorite content providers would be extremely helpful for the growth of everyone. And it'll also be a nice safeguard for when it's finally time to, when you see people get kicked off of certain platforms, because with the way that we're talking right now, challenging the corporate media narratives, we know that YouTube is not a safe platform for us to be on forever. The only thing that YouTube really has over everyone else is the fact that it's just still the most convenient. So, yes, I would much appreciate it if you go click the link tree, follow and subscribe on some other platforms, try to share the content to people you know. That could go a long way. Now it's time to say, this is Andrew Rochford telling you goodbye and good night.